The history of family and intimate partner violence has unfortunately been a reoccurring nightmare for millions of people all over the world. This violence affects society as a whole, and when women end up most frequently being the targets of intimate partner violence, and the children end up being hurt most of all as well. Um, every country has their own individual struggles with it, and some are much more open about it than others. For many, it happens behind closed doors, but for other countries, it can happen a lot more out in the open. For example, there are bride burnings, female genital mutilation, female feticide, honor killings, and the unfortunate trafficking of women and children. Um, this violence is vile and it affects nearly 1 in 4 women just in America. Globally, the numbers are much higher. I introduce you to a story published on March 8th, 2022 from the Tampa Bay Times by a woman named Rose Wong. And she wrote it about a family of 3, a woman and her 2 children. So this woman, she has a teenage daughter now as well as a 9-year-old daughter, and they were originally from Japan, and in Japan is where this woman met her husband. Met her soon-to-be husband. They met at a dinner with multiple other friends, and after this dinner, he seemed to come off as like perfect gentleman. He was very charming. She called him sweet and funny, and then after that, they began to date. They dated for about a year, and they lived with her teenage daughter as well. This teenage daughter was from a previous marriage. And then she got pregnant after a year of dating, and then they got married. And once she was married, that's when his behavior began to change. And it was almost as if the marriage was the trap that was now set, and the woman, she just had a newborn baby. They were just married. There wasn't much else she could do or had another place to go because she was under another impression of the man that she was marrying. He was first neglectful, and then he was mean, and then it slowly became violent. And he took over everything financially, and after the woman's father died, he took her inheritance and used that money to move the whole family from Japan to the United States. So in the United States, he took on a student visa and started learning English at the local college. The family was, staying with a friend at one point, and then the husband had ruined things with a friend, and then they were going from hotel to hotel. And then in these hotels, he started setting up a recording device, and he would even record the family as they were sitting in there to see what they were doing, to make sure that nothing was going on. It was completely invasive. The girls, they all began to feel like prisoners. He would control what they would wear. He would control where they would go. He would withhold dinner from the teenage daughter whenever she would question him or just disagree with something. And he was verbally abusive towards his wife and the daughters, and he was also physically abusive and would hit the wife and his daughters as well. And so eventually the woman came to her breaking point, and she called the police. And when she called the police, that was when she was finally able to separate from this man. And after separating, she went to the Casa Transitional Housing Facility. And this is when this article was published. So this article was published in honor of their 1-year anniversary at the Transitional Housing Facility, which was on March 10th, 2022. So they celebrated them being away from the husband for 1 year. The husband had to go back to Japan. His student visa expired. So now the family is trying to seek refuge with the domestic abuse that and family violence they experience. But unfortunately, within this country, if there were no police reports filed, then there's no way to seek refuge due to domestic abuse, which is unfortunate because the judicial system definitely has some holes in it, and I think that is a level of controversy that should be more openly talked about and understood, because a woman and a family experiencing domestic abuse and family violence, it's not easy to go forward and report it to the police. A lot of times there are many other factors that are that could really hurt the family and the children. I mean, if they report it to the police and no immediate action is taken right away, right after, you are now endangering the partner who's experiencing the abuse. You're endangering the children within the situation, because you have no idea how someone of that violent caliber will now react to that partner reporting the abuse. So there should be more of an understanding with that within the judicial system when a woman comes forward and finally is able to seek refuge and leave that situation. It shouldn't be merely based all upon the police reports. The family stated that they were hopeful of hopefully receiving a visa to stay another way, because they know that if they go back to Japan, they face the risk of the husband trying to kidnap and take back the daughter, and the potential for this violence to come again. And I mean, early intervention possibly could have been available if the wife was able to maybe look at those early signs and leave then. But I mean, we can't hold any of those things against her, because it's so difficult to even realize those things are happening when I mean, my original insight is that he had already conditioned her to believing that she deserved that treatment. And when this type of brainwashing occurs, the abuser has full control, or the abuser feels like he has full control and power over the partner that's enduring the abuse. And that's the point. I mean, it's mental conditioning, mental brainwashing, so that way the abuse can continue verbally and physically, and the partner feels completely trapped. So, I mean, intervention and prevention really is strongest in the fact that we shouldn't make it so difficult for women to be believed when they do come forward. We need more a different way of going about it, rather than saying, oh, well, if there's no police reports, then we can't do much about it. There should be more information looked into the transitional housing facility, the women, like the people who worked with them and helped them along the way to get out of that situation. That's just my original insight, but I do think it would make it a lot more proactive and more life-saving for the women that, are constantly stuck going back and forth between these issues of family violence and abuse, and it could save a lot more lives in doing so. So, thank you for listening to my presentation. My name is Angelina Trench, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.